I'm in love with my sister. I am in love with my former sister-in-law. I'm finally at a point where I can't stand this anymore. I've been in love with this woman for a very long time, maybe a couple of years at this point, and I'm not sure if I should just stop it or attempt to make something with her. I met my ex-wife, her sister, when I was 23 years old, and the relationship developed very quickly, and by 26 I had my son and daughter and had gotten married. However, within months of being married my ex-wife had an affair, but worse than that, the man she cheated with had gotten her into substances. After confronting her on this, she said she was going to get help, but instead she left in the night. I haven't heard from her in 4 years, and last I've heard she's still with that guy and are homeless in Las Vegas. Not sure how true that is, but being focused on holding it together for the kids, I really don't have the time to chase her down, nor do I want to after what she pulled. I ended up getting a divorce in absentia. I did, however, maintain a very positive relationship with my in-laws after the fact. Every other weekend my kids stay over with their grandparents on that side, and they pretty much treat me like a son still. I still go to parties at Christmas and am reasonably liked by the family. Nobody talks about my ex anymore, mainly to not worry my kids. My oldest, my son, is very hurt by his mother leaving. He's 9 now, and I've had to get therapy for him after he told me he hoped his mother was dead. She had been getting verbally abusive toward the end, which was when he was around 5 or 6 anyhow. In the year following my ex leaving, her sister and her boyfriend had started coming around a lot to see the kids. They knew I worked a lot and would babysit and call it practice, as they wanted to have children of their own. My kids loved them and were spoiled by them, which I didn't mind because we all needed a little positivity. They got married and were very in love. However, her husband was killed in a workplace accident shortly after the birth of their daughter. It has been extremely rough and painful for everyone involved, as one can imagine. I followed my sister-in-law's example and began to take her daughter to give her time to herself if things got too hard to deal with or she needed alone time. She's been in grief counseling for a few years, but she still wears her ring and has told me she can't ever imagine dating again. I talk to her about him frequently and she's gotten to a better place, but she's still very much in love with him. I can't imagine that sort of pain. Over the last 2 years we've been a more constant figure in each other's lives. My kids love their aunt and I have her over for dinner a couple times a week. My daughter and her daughter have become close and love being around each other, so they have sleepovers. I've moved on from my ex by this, but the idea of dating possibly someone dangerous as their mother has kept me out of the dating scene. I don't know when it happened, but slowly I began to get soft on my sister-in-law. She's a great mom for what she's had happen to her. She's one of the sweetest people I know, and her sense of humor always leaves me laughing and happy. Then I started realizing that I'm physically attracted to her. I've always felt kind guilty about it because her late husband was a good friend, and since she's obviously is still grieving, so I've kept it to myself. Since the virus started we've been together a bit more because social distancing has had us lose contact with most other people. Nothing romantic has ever been discussed and I try not to flirt, but last week it was very late and after the kids went to bed I made us a few drinks, not enough to get drunk, but she decided she'd rather spend the night, so I took my couch. I woke up to breakfast this morning and the 4 of us felt like the sort of family I've always wanted. She even kissed my forehead, which is not something she normally does. I still didn't say anything, but after she left I found my son quietly playing with his toys in his room. He looked upset, so I asked him if he was alright. He tells me point blank in the way only a kid can that he wishes sister-in-law was his mother. I sat down with him and asked him why he thought that way, and he gave a whole bunch of reasons, her being nice to him, that she never yells about anything. He likes seeing her at his grandparents and she draws pictures with him, which I didn't know they did. By the end of it my heart that is already melting for this woman even more wound up. When visiting, dropping them off with their grandparents, I tried to breach the subject with her folks to kind of feel around how people would see. I made a joke about she and I acting like a married couple sometimes, and they didn't laugh and were kind of standoffish, friendly, but either they know something or they disapprove. It's getting too hard for me to ignore or pretend it's not getting to me. I'm in love with her. Either I've got to stop it and find some way not to think of her, or I have to find some sort of way to navigate through this situation and tell her everything. If anybody out there has any insight on how to approach a widow, especially one who is married to a friend, with this sort of intention, I could really use your help. Update: I'm in love with my sister. Shortly after making the first post, I remembered that my children were spend Sunday night over their grandparents' house, and typically when they do this, my niece, sister-in-law's daughter, will join them. I allow these bi-weekly visits because I think it's important for them to maintain a healthy relationship with their mother's parents. And sister-in-law lets her daughter go because she enjoys playing with my daughter. Well, I realized we'd both have a free night. Normally I'd just game or hit the gym an extra night, but I figured it would be the perfect opportunity to sister-in-law without the kids being around. So I sent her a text saying, "Hey, kids are out this Sunday, was thinking you might want to get dinner." It was a fairly upscale place that reopened 2 months or so ago for outdoor dining. I never ask her out to dinner and we're almost never alone together, or without a child in the other room. She says she'd love to, and so my panic starts setting in because now I've got to actually act on my feelings. I ask her if she'd prefer meeting at my place and taking one car or meeting at the restaurant. She says she'll come by my place first. I'm a bit more cleaned up than normal, dressed up but not overly dressed. She shows up and my God, she's in a very nice evening dress, makeup, not something she normally wears, really looking stunning. I must have been slack-jawed for a second, I had to be lol. We make a little small talk, compliment how we look, but I still don't have my nerve yet and she isn't pushing the issue. Dinner is really wonderful, they had live jazz type group playing. Definitely coming back to this place. She tells me this is the first time she's really had an adult social outing that didn't involve her daughter in a few years, and I mention that it's about as long for me. We're laughing, joking, talking, a little casual touching here and there. I can't seem to find my nerve though, I'm afraid of ruining this moment, so I just submit to having fun. But as we're leaving, my mind snaps and I'm just like, fuck it. And when we stand to go back to the car, I give her my arm and we walk back to the car arm in arm, no awkwardness, nobody mentioning that it's happening. I open her door for her and I plan on driving her back to her car. As I open the door, she stops me. Looking sort of nervous, she just outright tells me to stop and that she want to kiss me. There was no alcohol at dinner, so this is all her. So I pull her in and we kiss. I can barely describe how wonderful it felt to finally touch her. Well, the kissing goes on outside this restaurant with her leaned against my car for at least a half an hour. When we finally break, we share a few more dreamy looks before we get in the car and drive back to my place. She's holding my hand as I'm driving. I don't think I've ever been happier. I confess to her that I've started having feelings for her a long time ago, but what with the terrible things we went through, I didn't want to scare her away. She tells me that she's carried a torch for about 6 months herself. At that time I had gone on a couple Tinder dates, and since we were just friends I described what a mess of a time those dates were. She tells me she began feeling intensely jealous and angry that I was seeing these girls. It was about that time it clicked in her mind that she had somehow developed feelings for me. As it turns out, I didn't approach her because of her late husband, and she wasn't approaching me because she was afraid I'd see too much of her sister, my ex-wife, in her and start to resent her for it. I invited her in after we got back home and we decided to try and fight off the desire to jump straight into bed, and just sat on couch snuggling and talking about what we would need to do to make this a working relationship. There was some really teary moments there. We of course talked about her late husband a little and where she feels in the grief process, saying I don't want to rush her and that I'm not going anywhere. If she needs time, I'll wait as long as she needs me to. She says that she feels like she's in a place where she could love again, that she's long past feeling guilty for having feelings for me. It was something she struggled with. She then brought up her sister, and the obvious questions a few people asked in the comments. What would we do if X ever decided to show her face around here again or try to get back into my kid's life? What if she comes back reformed and apologetic? Would I take her back? I told sister-in-law that's a hard no, that I've forgiven her for cheating on me, but I will never forgive her for what she did to my son. He was quite a sunshiny and happy boy before his mother started cheating, using, and lashing out at him. He's doing better now, but for a long while his behavior and negativity for somebody so young troubled me. Sister-in-law was concerned how he might react to her, as unlike our respective daughters he is old enough to understand everything. I told her not to tell him as it might embarrass him, but not too long ago he told me as wished his aunt was his mom instead. We said we were going to take it slow and now go too fast with things, but the kissing started again, and since we were in private this time, we gave up the fight to stay out of the bedroom. I have had fantasies throughout the duration of my feelings for her, and getting to pet her face in the morning was one I finally got to live out. Moving forward, we are going to establish date nights and work on building on our already strong foundation. When we inevitably tell our folks we're a couple, we're going to do it together. But that's where I'm at. That's it, that's my update. If this subreddit allows, maybe I'll do another to say how the parents, in-laws, and kids take the news. 2 years of wishing she was mine and now she is. Better not F this up.
Whoa, hold up. Let's talk about something that might be causing some serious confusion. If you're feeling romantic love for a sibling, it's crucial to understand that those feelings aren't healthy or appropriate. Family love is beautiful, but it's different from romantic love. This situation can be really tough to deal with, so don't go through it alone. Reach out to a counselor or therapist who can help you sort through these emotions. Remember, it's okay to feel conflicted, but acting on those feelings isn't okay. Your well-being matters, and there are people who can support you through this.
My wife of 22 years cheated on me with my brother 17 years ago. My wife and I dated throughout high school and attended college together. We have literally been each other's everything since we were 14, being each other's first loves. We married at 20 and had a child at 23, gradually building our way up to the middle class from practically nothing. It would be an understatement to say that our lives are so intertwined that separating would be catastrophic for both of us. I love this woman with every fiber of my being, which makes this betrayal so much more difficult. Fast forward a few years to 2006, when our daughter is 2 years old. My brother, 5 years older than me, has recently divorced his wife. He was trying to get back on his feet, so I wanted to help in any way I could. I offered him our spare room for as long as he needed it. We cooked for him, cleaned up behind him, and helped him get his life together. After a few months, I noticed that he and my wife were becoming closer than normal. I started noticing things that didn't quite sit right. I am going over a lot of details, but eventually, they started texting all the time and talking on the phone when he wasn't at our house. I knew there was something going on, but every time I brought it up, I was made to feel like a jealous idiot. After a while, there was little to no attempt to hide it. I went into a dark spiral of depression. The only thing that kept me going was my daughter. This went on for several months. One day, I finally checked my wife's phone and saw that they had been dirty texting each other. My world absolutely fell apart. Trying to be the bigger person, I called them both together for a sit-down. They both agreed that nothing had ever been physical. They looked into my eyes and swore to me that the texting was the extent of the affair. I swallowed my pride and tried to forgive in an effort to keep my family together. I would not hesitate to say that this incident broke my mental state. I have suffered from severe depression and anxiety as a direct result of this betrayal. Fast forward 17 years to the present day. My wife and I have had another child. Our lives are finally becoming comfortable. Life is good. On some idle Wednesday, my wife and I were talking, and I caught her in a small lie. After pressing her for hours, she finally admitted to kissing, snuggling, over-the-clothes touching, exchanging photos, and phone call sessions. My life seemed to fall apart worse than it did 15 years ago. I called my entire life into question, including the fatherhood of my second daughter. She has his blue eyes. I spoke with my brother and let him know that I had my wife's side of the story, but now I needed his. Based on how they matched up would decide on how drastically I would take this. I used everything in my power to interrogate him for hours. For the most part, their stories lined up. There was a lot of, I don't remember, from both of them though. I highly doubt that is something easily forgotten. I let him know that we were done and to never contact anyone in my family again. During the interrogation, I caught them in a lie about when the affair ended. They had promised me that the affair had ended back when I caught them the first time 17 years ago. However, through some Sherlock-level observations, I proved that their affair kept going after I caught them. This devastated me. They both did. Fast forward a month. After catching my wife in more lies, her entire story unraveled, and she admitted to having intimacy with him while she was at a work conference. She claims that this only happened once and that it was very awkward because he couldn't keep his soldier up straight. She said she faked hers, then he finished and immediately left. According to her, they never had any more physical contact, and my brother married another woman and has been with her ever since. I may be a fool, but I am confident that the affair ended about 6 months after I caught them the first time. I don't know if I should believe that she has been faithful ever since. So anyway, here I sit. I have been married to this woman that I adore for 22 years. Our entire lives are woven together, so much so that I question if either of us can function without the other. I feel betrayed all over again. My wife is telling me that she lied to me to save our marriage and that I can't hold her responsible for dumb things she did 17 years ago. I am really trying to make peace with this, but I don't have a clue where to go from here. Is it worth ruining my life and decimating my family to teach my wife a lesson about something she did 17 years ago? Am I just being an idiot for believing her? I honestly don't know, but I feel that dark abyss of depression slowly creeping back to the front of my mind. It frankly scares the hell out of me, and I don't know where to go from here. I am trying to maintain some semblance of normality for my youngest daughter. She has 4 years of high school left, so my plan right now is to move into our basement for the next 4 years. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. I don't feel like a man. I have lost all confidence in myself. I just feel like some useless weakling that can't stand up for himself and has been made a fool of time and time again. Update 1. Everything went sideways this morning. I caught her in another lie, and finally, she admitted that they had intimacy multiple times in Fleabag Highway motels while I was away for work, just like so many of you said. So, slight change in plans. I have a lawyer. My daughters both know. Her family knows. She is moving to the basement until alternative arrangements can be made. I will be keeping the house. Update 2. I am doing a little better. My brother still refuses to respond to me. I am pretty sure that he blocked my number. So, I decided to tell his wife, his ex-wife, his daughter, my niece, as many of his friends as I knew, and his employer. If I can't have my pound of flesh, I will spread chaos in his world. Despite not having anyone to turn to, I feel like I am in a better place. This will probably be my last update.
Viral cheating stories often follow a familiar formula: young love, hasty marriage, and betrayal. But real relationships are messy and don't always fit a script. When every story sounds the same, it's worth questioning if they're too convenient to be true. Truth can be stranger than fiction, so we should be wary of tales that feel too familiar or perfect. I hope that his romantic prospect isn't shattered because of that and his happiness flourish.